Hello, everybody. I have the honor of interviewing Andrew. We're going to talk about FanDuel. For those of you in the room who I haven't already annoyed, the RTL Ad Alliance, who I work for, is Europe's largest media network. We represent the number 1 or number 2 broadcast channel in every country in Europe, and the associated media stack below that, digital, print. The R in RTL stands for radio. We're owned by Bertelsmann, the company that owns Fremantle, Penguin Random House Publishing, and BMG Music. So if you have any global concerns, particularly around Europe, we're the guys to talk to, and we have a team in America that can help you in the Netherlands or Germany or wherever you like. Thank you for listening. Now, Andrew, FanDuel is the number 1 betting platform in America, so congratulations.
Thank you. Certainly wasn't me. There's a lot of folks back at the shop that made that happen.
And perhaps you want to introduce yourself to folks.
Sure. Hi, Andrew Sneyd. I'm the Executive Vice President at FanDuel. I've been there for just about 4 years. In that time, we grew from, I was probably the 600th employee hanging out in COVID, didn't meet anyone I worked with for about 6 months. Now we're 4,000 people strong. Listed on the New York Stock Exchange earlier this year. And it's been a really exciting ride as we've been at the forefront of this growing industry as half of America has legalized sports betting in states. So lots of growth still to come, and it's exciting to be in the lead, maybe in the second inning of where this category is growing.
When we listen to brand marketers at events like this, usually they're talking about how they grow their brand in a very, very well-established category. You've had the challenge not only of establishing your brand, but the category of gambling is new as well. How do you get noticed and awareness in a brand new category?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're very fortunate that we spent to the brand that we wanted to be, as opposed to the size that we were. And we are a part of Flutter globally, and there were a lot of great best practices in really understanding how to invest well in this category. So there was first investment that allowed us to lose money for 3 years before we started making a lot of money. So that's the first piece. The second is we are very fortunate that we own our customer data. And so we really appreciate how people, our customers, interact with us. And that helps us to be really sharp on using investment fuel well. And I don't like calling it media, I like calling it investment fuel. And the ways in which we can spend dollars to be able to create the outcomes that we're looking for. So we're very fortunate that when you work in a business that is all about making smart bets, we've made smart bets on understanding how to place that investment fuel, measure it well, change on the fly, really lean into the things that are working. I think one of the main challenges is obviously the proliferation of spend, the amount of media spend that's out there, and the fact that customers are now trained to try to tune it out. And so we, again, lean into the fact that every day the sporting calendar is different, and we create bespoke content that works for tonight, Game 5 of the Yankees, hey, what's going on with Thursday Night Football and the Jets tomorrow. Our team is building content today that can break through and have relevance in this moment, and we build thousands of pieces of content every day that are churning through, earning relevance in how they get in front of customers. That just helps us to connect and break through more. Maybe the biggest one that we had was when we wanted to first show up to the Super Bowl and have that moment where FanDuel was really on the map with America. We decided we weren't going to make an ad, which doesn't make any sense. We bought ad time, but that's not what we wanted to do. Because we are a part of sport, we couldn't participate in the Super Bowl in a way Toyota or an insurance company or anyone else would show up and rent a celebrity and have a laugh and try to climb the ad meter rankings. Instead, we wanted to be a part of the greatest American sports holiday, which is Super Bowl Sunday. And so we built something that was about making more of the moment when we created what I hope you guys have seen, which is the Kick of Destiny with Rob Gronkowski. Hey, if you place a bet on FanDuel, you get to share in $10 million if he hits or misses this thing. And that was a great success story in taking a risk and making sure that we build something that is actually a part of Super Bowl Sunday instead of being just another ad that shows up in the middle of the game.
I saw that. That was amazing. If you didn't see it, they orchestrated a kick for a huge prize that was live.
Yep.
And they didn't know the outcome. So they couldn't prepare for what was going to happen.
Including the wind, taking the ball slightly left, without the camera angles and the time for replays that would have made it easier for the audience to see that he did in fact miss.
I bet you would have given anything to have that be a taped segment.
You know what? You take what comes with the fact that it was live. You know, that was part of what was special about it, is nobody knew, including us, what was going to happen in that moment, and we turned ourselves over to the day and to the fans.
So you talked about investment fuel. How does that relate to how you're placing your bets vis-a-vis advertiser, paid media, or earned media with PR?
I love the question. I do think it is too easy for us to be average as marketers and just, I'm going to buy this much share of voice and I'm going to put safe content into the world, and you will be very accurate at being very average and unnoticed. So there's a little bit of the balance between how to make sure we spend money well on the things that we know are working, and then continuing to innovate on how to create content that people actually care about. So it's not like we're not a traditional big spender. I think we're 50th in America in the latest data that just came out. So we definitely spend a lot of money, or as I like to say, invest fuel into growing our customer franchise. But equally, by being smart about how we spend money and getting out the dollars that aren't working for us, it gives us a little risk pot to be able to figure out how to take some bets. And when you frame it that way with CFOs and others, they get excited about the fact that we're as hungry to find the dollars that aren't working as we are to show here's the risk we want to take to see if we can make an outsized impact with something else that we want to do. So I like thinking about it that way, and I know our financial partners like thinking about it that way. So we are always hunting to make sure we carve out the dollars that aren't earning their place and putting them into things that could surprise us with how big they could be.
One of those I see is FanDuel TV. So you're making a bet there. How do you, and you obviously announced a naming sponsorship with Diamond Sports Group. How do you see yourself fitting into the sports and entertainment landscape with FanDuel TV?
Yeah, so FanDuel TV started as the TVG network. Strictly horse racing. It's actually one of the starts of our company in the US. And it's not surprising that the company had a horse racing business and wanted to make sure that people didn't have to go to the track to see the horses race, so there was more of an opportunity to bet on them. So since the 90s, this business existed. We got folks from our shop that were there in the earliest days. And basically, 3 years ago, we rebranded it to FanDuel Television so that it could still be about FanDuel racing and the horse racing opportunity where, hey, it's lunch, let's hop on, see what race is on. I want to put $2 on this pony. The guy I'm working with is going to put $2 on that pony. We'll see who wins. That can still exist. And then we also added 2 other content streams. So one is what my wife affectionately refers to as sports gossip, which is when I'm watching sports television and there's not sports on, but they're talking about sports and who's likely to be traded. I do like sports gossip as a category of content, including us being able to present it as the only place where it comes from a gambling first perspective. So, hey, with the weather that's coming in Pittsburgh, we think the unders are going to hit. People are interested in being able to get sports betting advice, and shows like Kay Adams' Up and Adams show, which is not just on FanDuel TV, but we spread that through the FAST channel we have. We spread it through all of our social content. It really helps that we build that as content first that shows up in great reach with our customer base and just lands differently than if I was to place an ad there. And then, yes, we recently went into an agreement with Diamond Sports to rebrand Bally Sports to FanDuel Sports Network. And that's an exciting initiative as well, because when you turn on the basketball game to start the season, for example, in Orlando, FanDuel Sports Network, great opportunity for us to be part of the content instead of being an advertiser, and it's the ultimate integration that we are the brand presenting it.
Sorry, do you want to explain that a little bit? Because, I mean, we're all in media, but in the New York market, we know Sports Channel and MSG. Diamond Sports and the whole Bally network, those are, what towns
Yeah,
are
those are all regional sports networks. They have a bunch of hockey team partners, baseball partners, basketball partners. So it shows up a lot like MSG for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I lived, when I worked at Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis, I know the importance of the St. Louis Cardinals to anyone that lives within a 3-hour radius of St. Louis. And now that's the FanDuel Sports Network. So it's exciting that this is a great opportunity for us to be part of the presenting content instead of renting a place in integration or renting an ad that goes in between the content of the game.
There's a lot of talk now, I mean, full disclosure, don't tell my wife, but I might place a flutter every once in a while myself, that the fan experience is going to be revolutionized in the years to come, particularly on streaming. So how do you see FanDuel's participation in streaming versus traditional TV?
It's a great question. I think it starts with sports is still the last place of broad reach television. What was the stat? 93 of the top, 98 of the top 100. I think 93 NFL, some college games, the show that premiered after the Super Bowl. Like, it is, the water cooler is now sports. You can disagree about politics. You can disagree about why they're presenting other shows. Streaming lets you find your niche of exactly what you love, but it also means that you're not coming in on Friday morning talking about the Seinfeld episode the night before. So it's sports. The last great water cooler, 120 million eyeballs are going to watch the Super Bowl. That is something that is commonly viewed and a connective tissue for everyone. So that's still going to be an important part of what we do for the broad reach, and knowing that that water cooler still exists for that content. What's interesting is how it's going to be so much more than that. So instead of it being a shared experience that just comes in one form, I think we're going to move beyond what's currently customizable to what's going to be really personalized. So right now, tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football with Amazon, we have dynamic ad insertion, which means that if our ad is being sent out in the third quarter to a customer, we'll check to see if they're an existing customer or we don't know them, or if they're on the RG exclusion list. And I'm really proud that we can do this. So
Responsible gaming.
Yeah, the responsible gaming exclusion list. So either you're a customer, great, let's send you this ad that includes content that's tailored to, like, hey, right now all FanDuel customers can get a no sweat bet on this specific thing happening in this game right now. Very cool. They might not realize, like, oh, my neighbor's not getting the same ad, but it's tuned to exactly who they are. If we don't know who you are and you're not on the responsible gaming exclusion list, you'll see the sign up today at FanDuel, which is what typically people will see. And then the third, where I'm most proud, is if you've raised your hand to us or to any of the state regulatory bodies and say, you know what, I shouldn't see gambling ad. This category is not right for me. They don't get it. And it's great that we've got partners like Amazon that are helping us to do the right thing, both to grow our business the right way and to make sure that we're leading this category the right way for the long term. So that personalized experience, even when it's on television and you might not be able to realize it, is incredibly cool customization that's happening. But the next step gets me even more excited. So as we think about the fact that we're obviously a second screen in people's hands while they're watching sports, and we know that sports betting, not unlike fantasy sports, helps to be able to create more viewership of the games, which is why we've been embraced by the leagues. That helps people not only make sure they're more likely to watch the game, but they'll watch the game all the way through to the end, even when it's a blowout. And if you think about it, those fans are watching the game not just for the outcome of the score, but also whether or not their bet slips are going to hit. And so we have interesting ways that you can track the bet on your phone. But imagine a world where the scores you care about are also on your screen, which is why we've got partners like Roku that are working to help us on what we can do to bring to life the scores that they care about. So yes, I want to see that the Bills are up. I'm a Bills fan. The Bills are up 42-3 on the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. There's a prediction, I hope. But equally that Josh Allen's rushing yards is sitting at 52, and I hope it gets to 56, and I can see that tracking on the screen as well. Because I've connected my bet slip to my Roku device and have just made it an incredibly interesting reason why I'd be watching on Roku and creating a more personalized experience. So that and more is on the horizon for what could be done to take broad reach of millions of fans watching the game, customized into whether or not you're a customer or not, or someone that should stay away from the category, and then personalized to what you care about most. I think it's an awesome horizon ahead for sports.
That's incredible. Just out of curiosity, are you able to do dynamic creative on the fly in case the game goes to overtime? Can you offer bets for overtime?
So we have some things set up with broadcasters in arrangements like that. It's not yet built as dynamic ad building, but it's certainly something that could be created in the horizon. You can imagine that that's not that difficult to build. We do things like live odds and the ability for partners like TNT to actually, hey, at the beginning of the game, the likelihood of win was this. They'll place in the fourth quarter the current over and unders, so that they can help keep their audience there, and we serve that to them in API. So there's lots of interesting things that we can do to be the source of likelihood of what's going to happen in the game, because that's really the business that we're in.
You find yourself in a very, very crowded field, very competitive. I mean, ESPN Bet now famously is in the space. What are you going to do going forward to stand out in that crowd?
Yeah, I think it starts with, we're very fortunate that we have the best product and that we have the scale. And scale really matters in this business. So 25% of customers come to us because they have someone that recommended them to come to FanDuel. And so the bigger you are, the more likely you are to get those recommendations. It's a category that's kind of confusing for new people. There's lots more we can do to help with education. And getting that word of mouth and direct referral is very helpful. So we're fortunate by being the biggest, we've got a bigger shadow and flywheel that comes with that, yeah. And then product. It's not that easy to do the number of markets with risk and trading teams, pricing them properly. So as you can imagine, we've got the smartest minds. They better be the smartest minds in sports, supported by really cool decisions support tools, or else we lose a lot of money. And we've got trading teams in Australia and Ireland and New Jersey that work together to be able to create the most markets and then offer them at the most competitive prices. Not unlike Walmart, scale really matters. So the bigger we are, the more aggressive we can be with putting the fairest price in front of customers, which makes it really difficult for others to match us. Because we can afford to lose $80 million in one game by setting the price where it should be, and others can't. So we love a lumpy way to make 11% margin as opposed to a smooth way to make 3 or 4, and we have that advantage only because we're big.
Okay. This is your chance to ask him a question. He knows the result, by the way, of tonight's Dodgers-Yankees game, so
I wish that were true. I
Fire
can tell
away.
you what our traders think is going to happen. If I were you, I'd put $5 on a home run by Freeman. Man, we lost a lot of money on that last night.
Who's got a question?
Very good question. This is definitely one of the more difficult things we need to do. And there's a couple things that we do, including some AI tools that are kind of genius to be able to make this easier for us. Your question gets even more difficult when you realize that there's 24 different state regulatory bodies that set the rules. And so we need to have a different disclaimer on every single one of those ads in wherever you tend to open your social app and it serves the ad. It needs to have the right one if you open that in New York versus opening it in New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois, wherever. And so we use GeoComply to know where people are, to then serve via flash talking the exact right disclaimer that makes sense for where you are, which means we make a lot less mistakes than if we try to make sure we're publishing the right content tailored 24 different ways for 24 different disclaimers. And as we grew, about like the 12th or 13th state, we had to change this, or else the whole ad was just disclaimers to catch up to what everybody needed to see, and it made no sense. So that's one of the ways we do it, which I think is really cool, that we're using AI to make sure that we serve exactly the right disclaimers that's needed in each place. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure we have that right. Second is that there's a ton of work we need to do to educate our ongoing creative team. So we have a relatively big internal FanDuel creative team that's closer to it and understands it, but we also have external agencies working that need to be aware of all the obvious and not so obvious challenges that come with making sure we treat the category right. Can't put undue importance on gambling. We don't want it to feel like it's something you have to do, but it's something you choose to do. And there's a bunch of education work that we do to make sure that people are briefed with that. The more challenging group is our on-the-fly organic social team that needs to be really clear about where the line sits so that they have fun in real-time moments and don't go over the line. There's probably 2 or 3 times a year when I have to reach out to the team and go, whoa, pull that one down. And I tell Abe and the team, 2 times a year is perfect. More than that is bad. 2 times a year is great, or else you're not trying hard enough. And we're constantly working with them to make sure that of the more than thousands, hundred thousands of organic social posts they're running, it's in the less than a handful that are, oh, you made a mistake, let's pull that down.
Go ahead.
Hey, with the acquisition or the partnership with Bally's and that whole network, is the KPI still new users and downloads for the app?
Is the KPI still new users is the question with the acquisition of the Diamond Sports Group? Yeah,
it's a very good question because it still includes making sure we're signing up new customers. So especially as Missouri's about to vote in 6 days whether or not sports betting is going to be legal. So for sure, we would like to use the FanDuel Sports Network serving St. Louis Cardinal games to help sign up new customers. So we hope they vote yes. So there still is new customer acquisition, and we're early in the stage of moving folks into the category. Equally, we want to be able to use this to be able to drive the share of bets that we get. So the average bettor has more than one app on their phone, and it's important for us to continue to have the reasons why we're chosen as the one you go to first. And this is one more way that we drive top of mind awareness and preference amongst sports bettors that have multiple apps. So it kind of depends which geography, what the purpose is, and it is not a clear answer, it's both.
Recognizing that new users is huge for where they're going to, how do you stand out in a huge pain moment for all of something like that experience? What do you do there?
How do you stand out in a big moment?
Yeah, the Kick of Destiny is probably the best example of that, where we wanted to make sure that it was connected to the experience of betting. So it would have been one thing to just say, hey, world, do you think Rob's going to hit or miss a field goal?
What were the odds?
Way better than 50-50. The dude was nailing them until the right moment. And he worked so hard training with Adam Vinatieri on how to kick it. Couldn't kick it 33-yard field goal, but he was so good with a technique to get it at least over the bar from 25. Even this past year, I think he hit 19 out of 20 before he missed and shanked it really badly in the last moment. But for example, that wasn't for us. Experientially means you got to have it connected to the product experience on the phone. So we purposely made it. You get the opportunity to have this free bonus bet. Anyone that bets at FanDuel can also pick, is he going to make or miss, and share in $10 million. And that is the way in which we thought about it being connected to the consumption experience, as opposed to, wanting to have a massive public watch party, including, what people want to do in the moment right before the football game? Be in front of their television and watch the football game. So it would have been difficult to try to get people to change that behavior. We're naturally the second screen connected inside sports, and it was important to make sure that when we thought about the experience we wanted to put around it, that we let people enjoy the moment and then be involved with us on their phone. It's in their pocket.
All right. Andrew, real quick, I cheated and took a sneak peek at your career. So Anheuser-Busch, Priceline, FanDuel, that's a fun career.
Don't forget Kraft. I also
Kraft,
had Kool-Aid Man busting through walls once upon a time.
Yeah, so fun career. Have you been able to leverage that history of brands in terms of getting creative with partnerships or any kind of conversations in that mindset?
In partnerships, what do you mean?
I mean, just there's a lot of, Anheuser-Busch and FanDuel.
Should I talk to my old friends and figure out something fun to do together?
I was just wondering if there was ever a
That could be fun.
conversation there.
No, which Clydesdale will be kissed by the puppy in the Super Bowl ad? Yeah. That's not bad. I do think there's a lot of things that carry over as I pivot the question a little bit. Certainly being in the world of beer and trying to understand how to grow a brand when, let's face it, it's all kind of yellow, make me dizzy and lower my inhibitions waters. And how to be able to build brand distinction. It's really powerful what's happened. Creates such pride in who drinks what. And there's a lot to be gathered from that. Then I went to Priceline and really understood, holy crap, the money that I used to waste, I can now figure out where I'm wasting it because we own the relationship with the customer. And I now know that Friday night at 4:44 p.m. is when people are most likely to book a hotel, and Tuesday night at 9:31 is when people are most likely to book airline travel. So there was a lot of interesting thing that came from better appreciating the customer journey when you own the relationship, combined with how to grow a brand in a regulatory constrained market that makes it helpful as a head start of how to market FanDuel well.
So in my household, I'm watching sports and my wife doesn't, right? So I'm wondering.
How dare she?
No. But when you think about expanding your audience, is there ever going to be an opportunity to start gambling on a scripted or a game show? So Survivor or Game of Thrones, who's
Big Brother.
Yeah.
So
as you consider
it's a very interesting question. During COVID, we ran out of sports. Luckily, horse racing was still on, and we had leadership in horse racing. We are constrained by being a legal sportsbook operator to what every state will allow to be bet on. So we can't make markets, we can only offer them. So during COVID, we took bets on Big Brother, but it was a free-to-play, hey, we all need something to bet on. Who's going to win this thing? You don't have to put any money in. We'll create a pool for interest's sake to keep people rolling. there's probably a world that expands. Obviously, right now, it's so interesting that we've seen the explosion of who's going to win the election betting happening. And that's not something we can offer as a legal sports book. But you can see that there's naturally a, hey, I want to see if I'm better than the average bear at predicting what's going to happen, and that could move beyond the world of sports.
I'd love to get your perspective on closed-loop attribution, specifically streaming. You mentioned outcome-based measurement. Where are we in terms of maturity there? What's working for you? Where's there still gaps?
Attribution.
I'm not the best to answer this. I have just enough knowledge to be stupid. But we are fortunate that because we own the customer relationship and we're working with partners that want to help, we can get a lot of the way to Bright on really appreciating like a last click environment and then building a few different market mix models that we have to help us understand where there should be an opportunity for us to be more effective with media spend. We don't believe our MMM model, but we believe that it points us in the direction that helps us to then experiment and prove whether or not something that's predicted actually does happen. So that tends to be how we look at our investment choices. I think of it in 4 steps. 1, we're big, so let's make sure that we use our scale to get good rates. 2, in-channel tooling should be there to help us optimize a spend inside any particular partner. 3, we use the MMM to try to understand where we should be able to be more effective, and then we don't believe it because we do number 4, prove it with a test and learn specific incrementalism test that then lets us have confidence to act really boldly and move dollars. That's how we tend to think of it.
I'm afraid we're out of time. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody.